Good morning. My name is Taryn, and this is my presentation on preserving Syrian culture. In 2011, the Syrian civil war commenced and wreaked havoc on the country. Successful revolts happening in Egypt and Tunisia prompted Syrians to rebel against their repressive president, Bashar al-Assad, who was using deadly force against protesters. This war spiraled into what is known as the Syrian refugee crisis, the largest refugee crisis to date. It has been ongoing for 11 years, still with no end in sight. 6.8 million Syrians have fled the country and are seeking refuge, while 6.7 million have been internally displaced. As can be seen in the map provided by World Vision, Syrian refugees are predominantly fleeing to the countries of Turkey, Lebanon, Jordan, and Iraq. Most flee to Turkey, as it borders the northern, more safer part of Syria. As shown in this graph provided by the UNHCR, between January of 2012 and September of 2013, just under 2 years, the number of Syrian refugees increased exponentially. And as a result, in 2012, Syrian refugee camps began to open. The stimulus material sparked a connection to the refugee camp, and further research led me to the question, how can Syrian refugee camps work harder to preserve Syrian culture? From this question came the argument that Syrian refugee camps can carry this out through keeping up communication, promoting the creation of art, and organizing culturally specific festivals and events. Of course, it can be argued that Syrians have the right to be who they wish to be and follow what they wish to follow. This is a very valid point, and Syrians do have the ability to stray away from their native culture, especially in countries that allow it. Another drawback with keeping native culture while in a foreign place is the feeling of being different or standing out. Of course, nothing is stopping Syrians from changing their cultural identity, and they should be allowed to do as they choose. However, there are many others that feel that Syrian culture would be better off preserved, as it provides unique insight into the roots and past of the country. This is supported by Norman Rockwell's The Holdout, which supports nonconformity to the normal, and in this case, the normal is considered a common culture throughout a country. It is necessary for Syrian culture to be preserved, and there are many ways that refugee camps can do this. One way of preservation is through communication. It has been said that culture is built on social interactions, and therefore it is important to ensure that refugees have the ability to contact their friends and family. The International Committee of the Red Cross points out that in Jordan's Azraq refugee camp, many Syrians don't have the ability to contact their relatives either in their home country or abroad. Creating ways for communication to be kept up is essential to cultural preservation, and the way to do this is to set up a traditional mailing service between refugee camps. This would provide a quick and easy means of contact that can reach all parts of the globe, and it can be instituted with the help of nonprofit organizations, fundraisers, and donations. Another way of preservation through communication is to encourage Syrians within the same camp to talk to each other and share experiences. However, there are limitations to the solution, such as the fact that it would be expensive to set up a mailing service, especially when the ending destinations are far. Another drawback is the concept of secondary trauma, which is when the sharing of a traumatic experience can have negative effects on the mental health of the listening party. Another way of preservation is through art. This can include sculptures, paintings, music, dance, and more. Sculptures and paintings allow for the expression of people, places, and events that are important to Syria's history. Music and dance allow for physical expression of beautiful traditions native to culture. Charlie Dunmore, a researcher of the crisis, tells the story of a group of Syrian artists that have come together within the workshop of a Zatari refugee camp. They have been working towards creating miniature models of several of Syria's historical landmarks. The real landmarks are being destroyed due to the war that is happening in the country. Pieces of art can also be used to educate the next generation about important events that have helped shape Syria's identity. And it provides a way for Syrians to come together and work towards creating beautiful pieces of art to reflect their culture. Limitations of this solution include that Syrian refugee camps lack access to materials used for art, and the materials they do offer don't last particularly long. This way of preservation is also not very engaging, as it is more of a simple learning device that is pleasing to the eye rather than a mode of preservation, making this solution reasonable yet relatively futile. The organization of festivals and events is also a great way to preserve culture. It allows Syrians, as well as people from other nationalities, to come together and celebrate and learn Syrian culture. Many organizations have been pushing to set up more events such as these. One nonprofit organization located in Montreal, Quebec, called the Syrian House, has been working towards creating a variety of small events, such as book stands, music events, and tea stands. This organization has helped thousands of Syrian immigrants feel welcomed in their area, as well as promoted the togetherness of people. Fundraisers for donations for the cause can be advertised in common areas, such as popular restaurants and on digital ads and streaming services. Out of the 3 ways of sustaining Syrian culture, this way of preservation is the most impactful, and it also involves the communications and art aspects of the first 2 solutions. The only limitations with this solution is that setting up many large events such as these would be expensive, and connecting distant refugee camps would be challenging. However, there is a plethora of nonprofit organizations working to make this easier. As can be seen, the Syrian refugee crisis has brought many detrimental effects to the culture of Syria, and refugee camps need to be working harder to preserve it. However, the organization of culturally specific events and festivals will ease this, especially with the help of donations, fundraisers, and nonprofit organizations. Thank you.
All right, excellent job, Taryn. For your first question, how did some preliminary information you gathered inform your research?
I actually originally started out with some preliminary information because last year for AP Human, we did a current event project, and I based my project on the Syrian refugee crisis. So I had some basic research about the population, where the refugees are fleeing, some basic effects of the refugee crisis. So I researched further and kept coming across different questions and arguments that I could expand upon.
All right, and your last question is, what are additional questions that emerged from your research and why are they important?
During my research, I kept asking myself what ways I thought could end the crisis, or at least make it a bit easier on Syrians. And while it's tough to find answers for that because it's been ongoing for a long time, it's important to look at because ending this crisis would be extremely beneficial to Syrians and the country and the culture.
Excellent job.
Thank you.
Stop the recording.